Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we're diving into something literally all of us deal with. We're going to unpack this hidden evolutionary mechanism that's secretly running in the background of your mind, like right now. It's this invisible force that sabotages our personal relationships, derails our professional lives, and totally skews how we perceive reality. But hey, don't sweat it. By the time we wrap up, you're going to have the exact science-backed tools you need to completely override it. So let's just jump right in. All right, I want you to picture a super relatable scenario. You're sitting in your annual performance review, right? Your manager spends, 20 straight minutes absolutely raving about your amazing work ethic, your brilliant project management, the whole shebang. But then, right at the very end, they drop just one minor piece of constructive criticism about your email response times. Now, what you actually think about on the drive home? What's keeping you wide awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling? It's not that mountain of praise, is it? No way. You're obsessing over that one tiny critique. And look, you're not alone. It's a completely universal human experience. So it really begs the question, why on earth do we remember insults so much more vividly than compliments? Well, there's actually a formal psychological term for this, and it's called the negativity bias. Researchers define it as our proclivity to attend to, learn from, and use negative information far more than positive information. Basically, it's a glitch that causes our brains to process negative events way faster and way more prominently than positive ones. Think about it. You could have 5 amazing things happen to you by lunchtime, but if you step in a massive puddle on the way home, boom, negativity bias kicks in and suddenly your quote-unquote entire day is ruined. The bad stuff just sticks to our brains like Velcro, right? While the good stuff slides right off like Teflon. Section 1. The negativity bias trap. So here's the crazy part. This bias didn't start out as a flaw. It was actually a wildly adaptive evolutionary function. If we rewind thousands of years, our ancestors had to be hyper-focused on negative stimuli to survive. If they ignored a beautiful sunset, whatever, no big deal. But if they ignored a rustling in the bushes, that was fatal. That was a saber-toothed tiger. But here's the catch. Our society has evolved way faster than our biology. We aren't dodging tigers on the morning commute anymore. Instead, this mismatched hardware causes us to have full-blown life-or-death stress responses over a minor typo in an email. Or, one awkward chat at the coffee machine. It's basically a survival tool that has totally outlived its original purpose.
Section 2. Sabotaging personal relationships.
So how does this evolutionary mismatch play out today? Well, it absolutely infects our relationships, mostly in 3 big ways. First off, it leads us to assume the worst about new people. Subconsciously, our brains are still scanning for a threat, which means we bring these totally unwarranted pessimistic attitudes into new interactions. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy for bad communication. But honestly, the most destructive part is this thing psychologists call negative potency. Because negative events carry so much extra weight in our minds, we'll take a tiny slip-up from our partner or friend and treat it as massively important. We just ruminate on it, completely ignoring all their wonderful traits. And over time, obsessing over these tiny, perceived flaws just slowly chips away at the trust in the relationship.
Section 3. Risk aversion in business.
Now, let's take this into the workplace. Negativity bias fundamentally warps how leaders make choices. Whenever business leaders face a massive strategic decision, they're supposed to weigh the potential benefits against the potential risks, right? But thanks to negativity bias, the scales in our brain are totally rigged. We vastly overemphasize the fear of failure or loss. The potential risks end up looking massive, terrifying, and insanely urgent, while the huge potential benefits, things like breakthrough innovation, massive growth, and market leadership, just seem kind of abstract. This psychological trap forces leaders into extreme risk aversion. They end up clinging to the safe option to avoid a loss, completely missing out on the bold option that drives real gain.
And there is literally no better or more devastating real-world example of this than Kodak. I mean, they were the undisputed kings of the photographic film industry. When the whole digital photography trend first popped up, Kodak's leadership had a choice to make. But, blinded by extreme risk aversion and totally fueled by negativity bias, they massively overemphasized the risk of hurting their core film business. They clung desperately to the perceived safety of film rather than risking the leap to digital. And, well, we all know how that story ends. They lost their massive competitive advantage to rivals like Sony and Canon and ultimately filed for bankruptcy in 2002. Think about that. Negativity bias literally bankrupted an entire empire.
Section 4. Rewiring your brain.
Okay, so how do we actually fix this? Well, one of the most powerful tools out there is cognitive restructuring, specifically this thing called Albert Ellis's ABC technique. So the next time you feel a sudden surge of anger, or maybe you're a leader about to make a fear-based business decision, you can use this framework to just stop that negativity spiral right in its tracks to improve your decision-making. Here's how it works. Step 1. Identify the consequence. What are you feeling or deciding right in this exact moment? Step 2. Work backward to the antecedents. What actually triggered this? What was going through your head right before the frustration hit? Was it a real threat or just negativity bias playing tricks on you? And finally, step 3. Challenge and reframe those negative thoughts. You're literally stepping in as the editor of your own mind here, replacing that automatic risk aversion with objective, balanced reality.
Now, another incredible everyday technique you can use is mindful breathing. And look, I know it sounds like just another wellness buzzword, but it is actually backed by hard science. There was this fascinating 2011 study by Kiskin and Shook that proved taking just a brief moment to practice mindful breathing actively increases positive judgments. It lets you objectively observe your feelings without getting swept away by them. By simply tuning into your breath, you detach from the panic of that negativity bias, reduce the negative processing happening in your brain, and literally generate higher levels of optimism. It's basically like hitting the reset button on your brain's internal alarm system.
Section 5. The 5-to-1 ratio.
If you manage people, or honestly, even if you don't, you absolutely need to memorize this magic ratio, 5-to-1. Research by Zenger and Folkman in the Harvard Business Review found that because negative comments sting so much harder than positive ones, remember that negative potency thing we talked about earlier? Leaders have to overcompensate just to keep things balanced. To effectively boost team performance and counter all that workplace negativity, you've got to deliver 5 positive comments for every single negative critique. If you dip below that 5-to-1 ratio, the negativity bias takes over, trust completely breaks down, and team morale just nosedives. 5 positives to 1 negative. Seriously, it's the golden rule of communication.
Finally, I want to share one of my absolute favorite techniques for defeating negativity bias on a daily basis, and it's called savoring. The next time something good happens to you, and I mean anything, whether it's a huge win at work or literally just a really excellent cup of coffee, don't just rush past it. Stop. Actively engage in those good sensations. Really drink in that positive experience. By intentionally focusing on the good stuff, you're actually creating deep, lasting memory traces in your brain. You are purposefully building up this robust bank of positive mental images that will act as a total buffer the next time negativity bias tries to drag you down. You're turning a fleeting moment of positivity into a lasting, hardwired habit. How cool is that? And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But I want to leave you with a challenge. What positive moment will you choose to actively savor today? You know now that your brain is hardwired to scan for the bad. But you also have the tools, mindful breathing, cognitive restructuring, and savoring, to actively choose the good. The power to rewire your brain for success is totally in your hands. Thank you so much for hanging out and exploring this fascinating topic with me today. Now get out there and go find something great to savor.